Hello, welcome to Quackalope. Thank you for being here. We just got finished with their first ever gameplay of Stuff of Legend. We've played a few times now. Full 4-player. Now, this review will have spoilers in it. If you want to watch that gameplay, trust me, it is worth the 60 minutes or so to dig in and journey through this with us. But we're not going to hold back here, right? We're going to talk about the experience of the game. And I think we start with a very brief 60-second overview.
Of what just happened? Well,
No, not what just happened. Okay, so Stuff of Legend is going to be a semi-cooperative game. You're working together with potential for a secret or hidden traitor throughout the course of the gameplay. You'll be moving through region to region, encountering various enemies and creatures. You're doing your very best to save the boy from the darkness or from the Boogeyman. The way you win the game is by leaving the correct exit, which is going to be the highest possible number in one of these 4 randomized exit zones. You never quite know if you have the right information or if people have sort of subverted and lied to you across the path. You have to trust people along the way. The way you lose the game is by leaving the wrong exit and or the boy moving all the way down to the boy is lost, which will trigger endgame immediately. That's really the structure of the game. Overall, we're going to be voting, enabling players to take an action that can be a basic move action, hide action, or play a card from their hand, and cards are going to be the main way you drive endgame. Every time you cycle through your entire hand, you'll flip a coin, which either moves the boy a little bit closer to being lost, or draws a Boogeyman card, which changes, or has the potential to change, the entire course of history.
And speaking of cooperation, Jesse, don't show the top cam until I did the thing I just did.
No. I said this will have spoilers in it.
From like the second 30?
Yeah. I said this will have spoilers in it. If you're watching this, you done goofed. So I want to start off here with this conversation. What we both have read the comic, and so we have expectations coming to the table. I fell in love with this game while I was reading the comic because the amount of life and character that's like imbued in this is all from the comic book. Everything is familiar. Everything is the story you read about. What were your expectations coming to the table?
Do you want to take that first?
Well, William,
are you sure?
Moments ago off camera, you were like, that was more exciting than I had anticipated.
Which is why I wanted to save it for a second. But yes, this was more exciting than I anticipated. My one and only real kind of experience with a game co-op with a hidden traitor is Dead of Winter and Dead of Winter the Long Night. I've played both of those. Those are both hard. This is equally hard. So I didn't know exactly how I would feel about that. Having a hard game, co-op game, and it might all be for naught because I am very trusting. So I don't sniff out traitors very easily. So we could go through a whole game and somebody be like, "Ha! I fooled you," and that never makes.
And you're
me
like, yes, that happens. Yeah,
that never makes
Good for you.
Yeah, that never makes me feel great. But moving through this game, there are unlike Dead of Winter, there are ways to find out whether or not people are loyal, and that I think was the big
outside
difference.
of social deduction.
Outside of social deduction, and I think that's what pushes this game a little bit ahead, or much further ahead of Dead of Winter. Now, like I said, that's my only experience with this genre. So but that being said, I think this is a lot better. Like you said, I love this art. If you said this is all pretty much from the comic book,
all of it is.
It's absolutely stunning and adds a lot to the play.
So much. Jan, what were you expecting going into this?
So I just want to make sure that I understand the question initially. Are you saying that how the theme influenced my enjoyment of the gameplay?
No.
Or
I'm just asking
the game
when
itself?
it comes to the game itself, because you made a comment at the very beginning about 20 minutes into the gameplay video, which I quote, "Oh man, I don't want to back a Kickstarter."
That was before we even started recording. So I'm definitely not as positive
When
as
we
everyone.
told
by the
you
way.
the game title,
Yes.
what expectations basically did you have?
I've only seen artwork of this from when I was at Gen Con. There was actually a big poster of this game, and I had zero interest in it. I thought it was going to be an RPG tale of toys doing something with some big chunks of narrative woven in there, and I just don't have a lot of interest or patience for narrative-driven adventure games. So I had no interest in this. So when Jesse said, "Oh, let's play Stuff of Legends," I was like, "Oh, whatever. Okay, sure. If we need to, that's fine." But when I started hearing about being a social deductive, like a hidden movement game, because this is ultimately what this is. It's a hidden movement game. Then my interest...
It's not hidden movement.
Not hidden movement. None of us are hiding.
I'm sorry, not hidden
moving.
what would you? Because I was thinking
It's a hidden
Spectre Ops.
traitor game.
It is Hidden Traitor. Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah.
This is nothing like Spectre Ops.
The game that this actually reminds me of
Well,
in terms of
invalidate
mechanically.
his opinion now.
Feed the Kraken reminds me of this a lot. Like that experience that we have with Feed the Kraken. Obviously, that's more of a party game, but it's like the idea of as a shared group, we're moving forward in a particular way. There's a traitor among us. That definitely, helps with the understanding. With that said, it's interesting that you point that out because for some reason I was kind of cataloging this in the same realm as Hidden Movement for whatever reason, even though that's wrong. But I don't know. I'm not as positive as all you are on the game. Like, I think it's solid. I enjoyed the playthrough. It wouldn't be something that I would add to my library so far, right? I thought that the theme of the game didn't come through at all through the cards, and like, I understand if you have background of this, but at no point did I feel like a toy. At no point did I feel that the board can behave like a toy. I had no idea that this was a closet. There was no thematic tie-ins in that way.
So we were giving you extra elements that go beyond that. This game, I think, does highly incentivize people who know the book to fall in love with it. Like, I didn't really understand this game fully until I started reading through the novel.
Yeah, you read it over Gen Con, actually, and that was when we went back to the booth the next day. And
got excited about it.
I am halfway through the book, and I love what the book is doing, and I'm really excited to dive into it. I read the book like a week or two later, and it really enhanced the experience.
Even the nature of the hidden traitor mechanic in itself, the book is full. Every chapter twists and turns your expectations on who is loyal and who is not, who's being conceived or convinced by the boogeyman to work against the boy, and who is working with their group, or who's letting their fears take control. And so the gameplay actually really replicates that novel in a really, really pleasing and pleasant way. So if you like the book, this is a no-brainer when it comes to the experience. I do find it interesting that as someone who was getting fed information from us, but then was looking at the game without any other information, you couldn't really connect with the theme. And I could see that. It might be too much being told on the table. There might be too much information here and not enough flavor texture, not enough of supporting narrative to let you know what's happening.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go ahead and disagree with Jan. Having not read the book,
Classic.
I got enough theme from the board. All you needed to say was this is an imaginary world inside the closet created by the boogeyman, and the toys, not the toys that we're playing, but the toys who have been tossed into the closet have been turned evil by the boogeyman, and
you've got it.
And you've got it.
And even the toys we're playing are the ones who are going to try and protect their owner, their boy. They're going in after him.
Right, and the board is evocative of a fantasy land. So we've got the Brooklyn Creek, which is down, obviously this boy lives somewhere in New York City, in Brooklyn. Look, there's a tree that grows in Brooklyn. That's thematic outside of the book itself, and this world opens up in front of us. There's the jungle, there's the ruined zoo, there's the Brooklyn Creek, and Hopscotch, which we didn't even make it to that side of the board. I assume that's a town inside the world.
Yeah, inside the book. There's a town where everyone is...
It's a little town with everyone's in prison and forced to play a game that has rules that are always wrong.
Yes. It's an endless game of hopscotch where there's one guy, the mayor, I think, who is in charge, and he makes the rules. Every time it's a new rule because he's going with an empty book.
Interesting. That sounds a little bit like something from my favorite comic series, Calvin and Hobbes, Calvin Ball.
Yeah.
But yeah, so on that level, I think, it evoked the story and narrative from me. I definitely felt, even without having read the comic book, that there was enough here to kind of fall into.
So let's break this into two parts. Let's look at, I think there's two core elements to the game. There's the hidden traitor mechanic, and then there's the, outside of that, there's just the mechanics of a cooperative puzzle.
Exactly.
So let's look at it to start with as a cooperative puzzle. Was this challenging? Were there interesting decisions to be made? Was there fun card play? For me, I would vote yes. I think even if I was playing this solo, there's enough things pressing up against me and enough things that I don't know. There is randomness. The events you come across, the way you resolve things, what you draw, how you flip the coin, and you can't always control perfectly for that. But I do think there's enough of a cooperative puzzle here that if we weren't working together, we would end up losing the game even without a traitor amongst us.
Go ahead, Will.
Or Shira.
I agree. I mean, I do think there's enough of a game with the cooperative aspect that if we weren't telling each other what cards we had and saying we should do this and planning a couple turns in advance, we would have lost the boy.
Yeah, I think the card play was okay. The issue I came upon is I never really had cards in my hand that I felt were very useful. Like you guys were talking about, does anybody have a movement? Does everybody have a movement? I had a movement at one point, but the movement was stained, so it was a bad, quote unquote, bad movement.
Sure.
And I didn't have that, or I only had cards that had symbols, that didn't have any actions. So I think maybe that's just a function of I didn't get to see the cards, but that's a function of any kind of card deck that you're going to have anyway. So I don't think that's a bad thing. It's just it can flavor your play of the game when you get it. It could be something that you're like, I never had agency of what I could do, because to discard all of our cards, we had to flip the coin, and flipping the coin is almost always bad.
Yeah.
So
I do wonder about the distribution and like the spreadsheet of the cards and how many of each type of card there is, because there was one really, really cool card that I saw once throughout the entire game.
I don't think there was another one of those. I personally would like to see a few more of those specialized cards.
It was so cool. I want to show you guys the actual card. I don't know if any of you read it when I played it out. You guys can continue talking, but
yeah, for me, I really enjoy the cooperative puzzle. I think it's intriguing. I think it's captivating. I love the theme and thematics of the game. I do wish that there was maybe a little bit more variation with puzzles or encounters or locations. I would like more flavor text. I would like more theme. I would like that to be pulled forward even farther, because there's so much in it. But I don't know if it's necessary. I think it would slow down the gameplay.
Yeah, that would be my thing. You don't want it to get too wordy, because
you don't.
Plus, I might point out that just from the box, what I see here, this is book 1, The Dark.
It is, yeah.
You said there's up to 3 books?
So there's more series that can come out, for sure.
Yeah, there's more to be added to this.
So Will, I'm gonna go ahead and kind of throw everything back at you, and then also answer your question. In terms of the thematic and the way that the graphic and artwork is portrayed in this game, if you actually wanted to get creative and really denote the idea of a closet, these would be shoes. You would have pieces of clothing on the floor depicting things.
Because this is an imaginary world. It's not a closet.
I understand, but the idea of... So basically what I'm trying to say is that the board...
Your idea of what you imagine in a closet does not have to be what everyone else imagines.
Sure, but there's... If nobody gave me... Like, if you didn't give me the flavor text, like the 2 or 3 lines of flavor text, there would be no way that I would associate this with closet, child fighting against the dark, etc.
Well, Jan, I have a point to make to you, and this is a point that has been brought up to you before. You got to use your imagination,
Okay,
buddy.
Jan. The year is 1944. The boy rests peacefully in his room with his loyal pup, Scout, and his favorite toys, when he is suddenly snatched from his bed and dragged into his closet by the evil Boogeyman. The devoted group of toys, led by the courageous toy soldier known as the Colonel, must stage a rescue mission. Despite their apprehension at what lies ahead, the toys venture into the Boogeyman's terrifying closet realm known as the Dark, and find themselves in a world where they've become real and can be hurt. They are thrust into a war against a vast army of the boys' discarded and disgruntled toys. The band must not only fight to rescue their boy, but also their very souls.
All I'm saying is that there's a lot of small details that can be done.
There's your introduction. That's what you didn't get.
Yes, but like, let's say that I'm walking over. Okay, sure. Maybe it's a hollow point. I think that there's a lot more that can be done here on this on the table, on the presence of the game, that could help incentivize that theme. But the theme isn't really what I care about, anyways.
I love the board.
I think the board is pretty. I just don't think it really tells the story. But in terms of mechanics, so this would be closer to like a pandemic style game where you're dealing with threats. You're playing cards in order to be able to substantiate those threats in a lot of ways. And honestly, in terms of that formula, I don't feel that there's enough here that's being reinvented that I would ever choose this over the multiple variants of pandemic that exist. Like, for example, the Cthulhu version of Pandemic reminds me of, like, the enemies coming in, having a little bit of agency in the way that they express themselves. And there's a lot of puzzles in that cooperative adventure that I found more interesting and engaging than this one.
So that's your mechanic evaluation.
My mechanic evaluation...
in social deduction to that? Does that change anything?
No, I don't feel... Well, okay, here's the thing. It's not a fair thing for me to say if it changes or not, because we didn't play with the social deduction element ultimately.
We played with the option.
Exactly. Like, it was there, but we didn't actually have a player acting as the traitor.
But
so
we
that
didn't
changes.
know that.
Yes, but that does change kind of like the repercussions of how things progress forward, etc.
Yeah, so in our gameplay video, we were all actually loyal the entire time, and the Boogeyman was one of these hidden cards, which could have been cycled back into the game. It never was, and we took a gamble on the exit we needed to take. But we definitely did question and not trust each other.
Oh, yeah.
I thought William was the traitor until he checked my card, and then I was pretty sure Shira might be. I wasn't 100% sure, but I thought she could screw us over. We knew we were loyal for the entire game.
Yeah, I don't feel that if I had that I don't feel that adds or takes away from my enjoyment of the game itself, because like to me the cooperative adventure, the capacity for quarterbacking or not quarterbacking, etc., is what will really drive this game forward. One of the main detriments for this is that some of the actions that are littered throughout that deck felt to me that they shouldn't be in that deck. Like sometimes, like
what?
There were so many things that depended on having the right card. It's like what you were saying. You felt fruitless in your turn sometimes because you didn't have what you needed. And so I think there should be maybe one or two more basic actions that allow you to do something that's of lesser value in order to be potentially useful on your turn.
I can hear that.
I would like
agree
to
to
see.
that, yeah.
I would like to see more options and more actions that can be taken by the players. I don't know that I need to see it, but I wouldn't mind if some of the generic moves, like a sneak move, could be done by discarding 2 cards instead of having that one that you need. Right?
Yeah,
If it opened up the door to maybe sacrificing more to do something, that would be nice.
I like the pressure mechanic of the coin. You know, the uncertainty of is this going to activate that or is that going to activate that, and how that starts transforming the way that the players themselves approach the game. Because we all started, let's go view at everything and make sure that we make the right decision, everybody. And then it was like, okay, no, we can't do. Like, logically, there's no way that we can make this happen. That transition was interesting. I did enjoy that itself. Would it be enough for me to come back to the game time and time again? I'm not sure. The encounter system, I wasn't really that engaged with it. The wound system makes sense, but
I like the nature of tabletop cards that you have to, like, quests that you can go back and complete. You said you were going to throw it to William, though.
In what part?
You said you were gonna address the theme, and then you were going to toss the mechanic question back to William.
Oh, I meant that I was going to flip the script on his comment around theming. I tend to be a much more visual player, so when elements on the table do not really tell me that was there, that's where I start disassociating, because there's such little things that I can imagine. Like, this to me looks like a...
I don't agree that
like
it doesn't
a map
tell
to
you that,
Neverland
but
is
I don't
what
think
it
we're
looks
going
like.
to convince each other.
Yeah,
when it
that
comes
was
to
it.
the social deduction element of the game, outside of just the mechanics or the cooperative puzzle, what's your sense of it? Did you enjoy it? Was it a fun puzzle to engage with? You said it's a step above the other ones that you've played.
Yeah, I think mechanically it's good to have somewhere to move a little bit easier with. It's good to have a board to move around. Like I said, my one big understanding of this type of game is Dead of Winter. You cannot move in Dead of Winter at all without taking some sort of risk. This, you can move as long as you have the cards. And I think, the ability to sneak with 2 cards would be great. I think I was the only person in our game who had to pass my action and just trash a card because I couldn't do anything. And I don't like games that do that. That is a low point, admittedly. But, that's something that's going to happen with a deck of cards that have a limited number of things that you can do. So that would be kind of the low point of the mechanics for me. However, I really enjoyed, or I think the addition of having kind of the location cards that do positive or negative things for you, plus the encounters when you move to the space, are an excellent thing. I think the location cards were a good mix of positive things and negative things, and the encounters got harder as we went along, which I think it ramped up pretty well.
And everything's customized to different regions.
It's all randomized as well.
Something that I feel like we're overlooking, sure, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, is the nature of the Hidden Traitor card not always sticking with the person who got it at the beginning. I love the premise that anyone at any point could have it become them. Or strategically, to win the game or lose the game, they might throw other people under the bus in order to become favorite to the boy or become favorite to the boogeyman. I could see it's not going to impact every gameplay, and it didn't impact ours, but I could see it being such a good and crucial moment to a game experience.
So that's one of my critiques, actually, about the game. The fact that most of the gameplays that I have played, the Boogeyman card has not had an effect. Yes, it causes us to have almost, and almost unnecessary doubt of
Suspicion.
It has suspicion.
Which is thematic.
It is thematic. However, the fact that it hasn't been in play so much and that it is so randomized and that it is very hard to actually get it when it is here. There's only 2 Boogeyman cards in a stack of a whole bunch of cards when we have been very frequently flipping and landing on the boy. I was frustrated that there wasn't actually a hidden traitor and that there wasn't someone else trying to pull the strings.
It would have been nice to see that.
It adds an element of creativity when you're able to try and arrange things so that you are accomplishing your secret goal while fooling everybody else and while thinking you're helping them. So that is a frustration of mine.
From my perspective, I don't care that never came into play. Just the threat of it was enough to keep me active and in play. If it came in, once again, I would have felt annoyed if we'd won or lost one or the other. So I don't know that necessarily made me feel any less or more towards the game.
The promise of what that can do for me is the thing that I'm so engaged with. I think, personally, it might just be the fact that at the beginning of the game, it's a 50-50 chance that it's there. I might want to lessen that. I might make it a 3rd chance or a 4th chance, where the odds of it being there...
Just take 3 cards, like 1 loyal to the boy, 2 Boogeyman, cycle to 3, and then keep 1, put 1, and put 1 back.
I think by the nature of that, it increases the likelihood that someone's going to be playing the Boogeyman, and they could discard it into that if they want. They could make that choice, but I do like it being involved in the game more than it was.
Yeah.
What was the point I was going to make about this?
I don't know, but I'm welcome to make a point for you. Jan thinks the theme is absolutely lovely and is really engaged and intrigued the entire time.
I like the theme of the comic book.
I know, I'm picking on you. Yeah. Let's go ahead and settle this. Let's go ahead and narrow down. We're going to give everyone like 60 seconds or 90 seconds to really give their final thoughts, what they like, what they don't like, and if you're comfortable rating it 1 to 5 scale, go ahead and toss on a rating. Anyone want to go first, or do we want me to volunteer?
You can volunteer.
I'm just going to be much of a Debbie Downer.
No, you're welcome to be. You're welcome to be, because we're going to counter you, right? So right now for me, this is going to be a solid 4 out of 5. It's not a perfect game. I'm really invested and intrigued. I want to read more of the comic. The thing that takes it down from that notch is going to be the fact that there's a few little tweaks that I would like to see. A little bit more action utility when it comes to the cards that we're playing. The freedom to be able to do something a little bit more painful, like discard more cards from my hand to do a more advanced action, if I don't have the specialized card that I need, would give me more agency over what I'm doing on the board, combined with a little bit more of a cycle when it comes to that Boogeyman card, or less odds that it's going to be there. I agree with you 100%. That being said, I'm really invested in this game. I'm invested in the comic, and there's no way I'm not going to have a final copy. I already, after this conversation, if we didn't have other things we have to film, I would want to play again. I want to see what this story is going to tell, and I want to play it with the same group 5, 6, 10 times, because it's going to become richer and more interesting as you do that. I think this is a 4 out of 10. I think some games... 4 out of 5. I think some games...
That's closer to my rating.
Listen, this is a 4 out of 5 for me. I think some games, maybe 1 out of 10 of them, would be a 5 out of 5, one of the best experiences you've had. And I also think maybe 2 out of 10 of them would be a 3 out of 5. It was a good game, but it wasn't that interesting or that intriguing. So it's going to rest right there in the middle. But that's my stance.
So I'm going to jump in because I remembered the point that I was going to make.
That's not what we're talking about now, but I appreciate
No, but I'll fold it in. Yeah, exactly. So ultimately, I feel that this is a competent cooperative game. I feel that it's doing things that are sufficiently interesting that it merits attention from people. It's doing what Feed the Kraken did that I enjoyed so much in a much more consolidated time frame and in much less table space and probably at a cheaper price point. So there's a lot of things in that favor. What I mean with that Feed the Kraken is also a hidden traitor game where you have a board and you're all moving together based on multiple decisions. So there's a lot of parallels. But I like what this is doing in that sense. So I want to champion the idea of having cooperative games that have traitor mechanics where you're all working together to make a unified decision. That I appreciate. But in terms of like the pandemic style formula, I didn't feel there was enough here to keep me engaged. One of the things that I'm actually quite curious about when that traitor mechanic comes into play is how much gray area is in this game for making decisions that are not potentially beneficial to the group. I feel that a lot of the cards lean heavily towards always collaborating and always assisting. So I'm curious to see...
Maybe like because we read the rule book, we understand the nuances because they suggest different ways within the rule book how to play cards as traitors. So,
There's a
but I feel like
ton
there is a
of
lot of
areas.
leeway. But
Like the stain cards, always saying like I have stain, and then you have like a bunch of
Discarding a
non-stain.
hand
Well,
of
like what his
non-stained,
ability
yeah.
was, like, hey, I'm discarding cards because I'm going to be giving you wild. He could be discarding the exact symbol that you need, a double symbol.
So that's what I would like to see in action, right? To see exactly how much nuance there is in the card play when you're a trader, because I feel in this particular game it'd be quite difficult to be a successful trader.
I don't think so. I think this gives you way more
yeah.
freedom than most hidden trader games that I've played.
Okay.
And if you really suck at being a trader, the reason I love that promise is because you get the right card and you get voted in to take your turn, you can just drop it. You can just be like, I'm not the trader anymore. Or maybe you are. Or maybe you are. Or maybe you are. That being said, if you're going to give it a rating, where would you rest?
I would rest at a 2.5 right now.
Yeah.
Like it's a game that I think has a lot of has promise.
But it's not for you.
But it's not for me. Like I think the thing that would solidify this as a title that I would come back to is that I want all these cards to do crazy things always. And have dual purpose, like dual action cards where I either do this or I do that, and also the ability that my support card has some way affects your action, not just sustaining, but either adds a small effect. Like I wanted to be a little bit messier with the card play because this to me is what separates this from the pandemic style games, from like the chaos management games and things like Feed the Kraken. The card deck is what I felt was the most interesting thing.
Viham?
Well, I'm going to be very boring because I'm basically going to mimic Jesse. This is about a 4
I'm not
4
boring,
out of 5.
though, so that's really
Well, I'm boring. No, I'm the boring one because I'm mimicking you. I think my largest issue with the game was the action deck and the card play. The theme. While at first I didn't know what to expect because when I was supposed to send this out to you in Cleveland, you described it as, that Stuffed Fables game. Well, I know Stuffed Fables. It's a family weight game. It's a cooperative game. I didn't know what to expect.
This is Saving Private Ryan mixed with Toy Story.
That's a good analogy. I enjoy that. What I didn't enjoy was the thought that this was going to be a little bit more like Stuffed Fables. I like narrative games, but I wasn't too keen on a Stuffed Fables type experience. This, I think, is a lot better. I really like the way it's laid out. I really enjoyed how the encounters and locations rolled out. The art style alone is enough to make me try and look and get the comic book, read that. I have read approximately 2 comic books in my life. One of those is The Watchmen. The other is a Star Wars one. So that's saying something. The art is great. It ties in with the theme. It's if there was one thing I might add, one game that we've been looking at since I've been here is Sleeping Gods. And in Sleeping Gods, you're kind of in control of a few characters plus an overarching character. So maybe, like in a 4-player game, we have 2 characters that weren't used. Maybe one of those characters could move around from other people so they can use that character. That's something that could maybe make it up, spice it up a little bit more, and get more of the characters in the game, because the characters are really what makes the game. From the boy to the player characters to the boogeyman to all these wonderful little bosses and minion people. Are pretty good, and that's where I think the strength of this lies.
I'd be really interested in you trying the Menace Among Us, because now thinking of that, this Menace Among Us and this game are very similar, because that one also involves card play in order to resolve different types of situations, and it does have like that character-centric conceit around it. Try the game.
Shaking his head no.
And
He's just listing
assure
all
you.
the like social deduction.
The rulebook actually does mention other characters being involved as Kickstarter stretch goals.
Okay.
So
We're gonna have a
But
lot.
that they're shared amongst the players?
yeah,
So-
other characters that you can do.
No.
stuff with.
She's just saying there's going to be more characters
There's
to
gonna be more
play as.
characters.
Oh,
So,
sure.
William,
I
if
don't
you're
believe so.
going to rate it,
Oh, he said 4.
Like you.
He said
okay.
4.
And Shira,
I wanted to find that moment.
I know it's more characters being unlocked, not
Yes.
more characters to be played as.
All right. So for me, thematically, this is a 5 out of 5. This is actually the first graphic novel I have ever read, and I love the story. I love the artwork. I really love the theme behind it, and that is why I'm going to keep coming back to the game. Mechanically and there's a lot of little critiques that I have that are bringing it down to a 3. So I am probably going to average around a 4, hoping that they'll take some feedback into consideration and maybe make some changes. The fact that in the entire action deck there are only 2 really, really cool cards. This one allows you to choose an exit space one way away from you and peek at it and then discard your entire hand. This one allows you to move to any space along, not including exits, that you can reach along paths, and then if the vote passed, discard your entire hand. So they have really strong consequences, and if they're played right, like if they're played as your last card and you have no cards to discard, then you can kind of really maximize them. But
That's
there's
what I was saying.
There's only 2 of them, and there's 1 of each type throughout the entire deck. So I feel like cycling to get those cards that can make a really big impression is a little frustrating. I also was thinking that maybe the wild actions, the little question marks, there can be an action that you can do with wild symbols. Because there was a decent amount of wild symbols that we all got, and instead of just always contributing them, if there was a special action you can use, because on those wild cards, there's usually not a specific action. These 2 are exceptions. So yeah, the card play was a little frustrating, not having the right cards, hoping for specific cards, feeling very restricted in looking at all these, and essentially doing a 50-50 guessing game. We knew 2, we didn't know 2. It could have really swung the opposite way. Another criticism that I'm frustrated by that we talked about is the Boogeyman, and not feeling like loyalty to the Boogeyman, and it not coming into effect as much as I wanted to. I really like being the hidden traitor. I like 1 versus many games a lot, and I think that would enhance the play as much. Besides for that, I enjoy the variability of the board. I enjoy the different encounters. The fact that you literally turn them all face down and you put them out in the beginning setup. So the board is never the same. It is always dynamic. It is always changing. I want to explore more. And I'm curious how this game is at different player counts. It can go up to 6 players. They recommend actually higher player counts for the experience. I think this is a wonderful experience and a good game.
Cool. So there you have it. 2 4s, a 3 to 5, and a 2.5. Let us know, who do you align with more here? Are you still intrigued or invested? And what out of our critiques would you actually like to see integrated into the final version of the game? This is still a prototype. It is still in development, and I know there's still changes being made. So the odds of some of the stuff we're talking about actually making the version you get to play are probably fairly good. That being said, whatever the case, whatever you do, remember to do the important thing.
Don't go in your closet. Like, be careful.
Stay out of the closet.
Yeah, stay out of the closet.
Stay loyal to the Boogeyman.
Stay loyal to the Boogeyman.
Oh, that's a good one.
We'll see you next time.